morning. So this is the tutorial for making your very own Unpaper Towels. You can choose any colorful fabric that you want. You don't even have to choose colorful fabric. You can choose, you know, plain, anything that you want. Some people prefer flannel. For kitchen towels, which is what I'm making, I generally prefer a woven just because it's easier to clean, and I already have a scrubby side over here. So what we're gonna do, you need one piece of cotton woven, or the topper of your preference, and one piece of cotton French terry. Some people also can choose, I've seen people use microfiber for this part, and it is very absorbent. I generally hate microfiber, so I use this cotton French terry. There's also some really great bamboo terry that works amazingly. And then all we're gonna do, they each need to be 12 by 12. And then all you do is you put one over the other. This is one method. The first method I'm showing you is gonna be a serged edge. So it's just fully serged, super easy to do. But first, before we do that, before we serge the edges, we have to quilt. We're going to quilt in an X down the middle. So I'll be back as soon as I have that done. All right, so as you can see, I marked my big X with I used Crayola, just any water-soluble marker, because that's gonna wash right out. And then it's very visible. The reason we quilt in the middle for the serged edge is just so that the fabric doesn't separate, move around, etc. after we're finished with it. So you can see on the other side, there's a nice X in the middle. I need to trim that edge right there. And this is gonna help our towel be sturdier, last longer, hopefully stay hole free as long as possible. So the next thing we need to do is just go ahead and serge around all 4 edges. It's that easy. I'm so excited. And there you go, you have a whole paper towel. The other thing that you can do, I'm not gonna do this because I have found I prefer without snaps, because I'm always worried about using towels with snaps on them. Will scratch things, sometimes myself. But some people do like to add snaps on either end, just so you can kind of roll them up like a paper towel roll. So then you would connect them and then roll the whole thing up. You'd have multiple. I have found I just kind of prefer a stack. And then I go get them as needed. But these are really fabulous towels to be used in the kitchen, to be used anywhere really around your house. They're great for cleaning because they have a smooth side and kind of a scrubbier side. They're great for cleaning up spills, messes, anything. So I hope that you will go make yourself some. You can also just use like a cut up old towel that has holes in it, you know? You can use anything for the absorbent side, anything absorbent. Cut up an old sweatshirt, cut up old kids' clothes, cut up anything you want that's absorbent, and then anything you want that, really cut up anything you want. And it's just 2 layers of absorbency and perfect for use around the house, and they're so cute. Okay, the next method I'm going to show you for making your own kitchen towels or house towels, or otherwise called unpaper towels, is a turn and top stitch method. This one takes a little bit longer just because you're using a sewing machine, but again, you're going to need 1 top fabric and 1 bottom fabric, generally 1 more absorbent fabric. But you know, there's plenty of leeway to choose your own fabrics. I just personally prefer cotton woven and cotton French terry for these towels. So you're going to take your cotton woven and you're going to put it right sides down with your terry cloth and just line up all the edges. I have a little bit of extra length on this one. It wasn't super accurate when I was cutting. This one we're not going to quilt first, because if we quilt it, we can't turn it. But I am going to clip it. This may be one of the very few times you see me do this, and I'm doing this just to maintain the distance of the fabric, maintain its spacing. Okay, I'm gonna clip it on 3 sides. And then I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to take a pin. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing it so that I make sure that it turns out exactly how I want it. I'm going to put a pin going one way in the center, and then I'm going to put a pin going the other way in the center. And this will just help that center stay exactly where it's supposed to be. Make sure everything stays where it's supposed to be. I'm going to start sewing on this edge, so I haven't clipped that. So I'm going to go ahead and sew. We're also going to leave a little, maybe 1 to 2 inch hole, probably 2 inches, 2-inch hole open down here so that we can turn our towel out. All right, so I'm going to go sew this and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have stitched all the way around the edges, as you can see, and I have left a little 2-inch hole here. Wow, that's like almost exactly 2 inches. Y'all, I didn't even measure or mark it. Super cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to trim the corners. This will help my corners turn out nicely. So you just take your corners like that. We're going to trim all the way on each one. Just sort of cut that tip off, just like that. Don't cut through your stitching though, or it'll unravel the whole thing. We don't want that. Okay, so cut those corners. Now, if you have too big of a seam allowance, you don't really want like a super bulky seam allowance, so you can trim that down. I might trim this one down just a little bit. But you don't have to do that. I just trim it down just a tad. Okay, so I'm going to take these pins out. I don't need them anymore. And now we can turn our towel. So we're just going to start pulling gently through that main opening that we preserved. It's just about a 2-inch hole. And you want to make sure when you're doing this, when you're sewing, definitely double check that you did backstitch to really secure those threads, because we need a nice strong seam so we can turn this out. This is a little bit more time consuming as opposed to the serged method, just because we have to do this. Kind of have to finagle with your towel a little bit. You could leave a little bit of a larger opening and that would make it a little bit easier. I don't like too big of an opening just because it can get messy. It just makes it harder to close. But okay, there we go. We're all turned out. Let me do the general and then we will poke out the corners. So I just go around and start pulling the corners out like that. Okay. Like so. We'll get this corner. Okay. So then what I'm going to do, let me see. I usually just use a screwdriver. I have a screwdriver. See? And I'm just going to stick it in here and really poke each corner out so it's square. Really, and this is why we clipped those corners, so we could have a nice, there's not a bunch of junk in the corner. See how that popped out nicely? We want that. Just a nice little corner. There it goes. You can use any pointy tool you want. I don't recommend you use something super pointy because it'll go right through. All right. Look how pretty. Let me get my clips because I am going to clip it again. This time I'm clipping it to preserve the ratio because sometimes fabric likes to move and adjust. And see how nice that just sort of, because it's a nice 2-inch hole, it just like creates its own seam allowance. And I'm going to clip it right there to keep it in place. We don't want this turning over, so I'm going to clip it to preserve that all the top fabric stays on the top and all the bottom fabric stays on the bottom while we're top stitching it. We don't want it to move around. All right, so now it is clipped. Here's where the opening was, and we're ready to top stitch it. So I'm going to go do that. Okay, as you can see, it's now fully top stitched all the way around. I did add a couple little quilting stitches there. Oops, I need to trim that one. Just in the middle, just to make it a little bit of a sturdier towel. Oops, more trimming. But yeah, so now I'm gonna have some really great kitchen towels, another trim, that will always be there ready to clean up any mess that happens, and I can just throw it in the wash as soon as they're done. It's as easy as that. I really do hope that you will come and make some with us.